So this is part 3 of the series. In parts 1 and 2 are sort of laid the foundation. Now let's take a look at what it is that we can currently do. And again, this is a compilation of what we've done with several clients already in this AI-enabled strategy development and strategy execution cycle. So the process starts off with some form of strategy. Now, I'm not going to go into how we use GPT to help set strategic direction. There's some, secret magical pixie dust in there. But the idea is whether I'm using, Blue Ocean or SWOT, Presto, Martin's, where we play, what ends up happening is out of that, we end up with a series of scenarios. Now, in GPT, we can say, okay, given this strategic direction, give us 4 scenarios on how it is we're going to accomplish these things. And then we could actually say to the GPT, now prioritize these scenarios based on, some risk return, maybe some knowledge of our current operating position, some constraints we have, such as cash, people, IT, and give us the prioritized list of those scenarios. From there, we're going to go choose a strategy. And again, that choice of strategy allows us to write up, we're going to say the top 10 objectives. So we can say to GPT, okay, we're going to go for scenario B, please write the top 10 corporate level OKRs. And based on those objectives, it should then be able to set what are the performance targets we should be able to achieve based on what it knows about those markets, what it knows about our capabilities, what it knows about our current situation. And so it's going to set those top level targets. Then we can say, great, thanks GPT, can you now document that North Star? So imagine at this point, we're now going to put a PowerPoint deck together that describes the North Star so that we can present it to the leadership team, we can present it to the board. It captures the scenarios, the strategy, the targets all together. So now we've sort of got that North Star developed, and it's been largely developed by GPT, but we're using OKRs as the structure in which we're capturing each node of knowledge. So we're now going to take that, and we should be able to say to GPT, now give us the organizational cascade. Now that you understand the North Star, break down by department what they need to do to achieve those objectives. Based on that, you then say to the GPT, would you please give us an assessment of how each of those departments is currently performing, what their headcount looks like, what people's performance looks like, what their capacity is, what their resources are, what their budgets are, and give me an assessment of where the gaps are between what they're currently doing and what the strategy calls for. Based on that, we can then say, please, GPT, give us your recommendations based on what the department needs to achieve through the organizational cascade, what they're currently doing in the assessment, form some recommendations of what are the initiatives to change the business activities that they need to do. Now, based on that, we should be able to say to the GPT, please create the cascaded OKRs. And those OKRs are going to cover both run the business and change the business based on the assessments and recommendations. And it's going to obviously lay down the project plans for us. It's going to tell us what should get done by when, what milestones are going to achieve each quarter. And that allows the GPT then to begin monitoring performance. And it's going to monitor the performance based on the OKRs and those targets. Now, what's fun about this when we began using GPT to monitor performance, we realized that all of a sudden it didn't pull any punches, right? Many times we find performance reporting is skewed a bit because we don't want to get conflict. We don't want to identify some weaknesses in our team. We don't want to identify some weaknesses in the strategy. It's the emperor has no clothes scenario. GPT doesn't have that problem. It's not limited by trying to make sure that no one loses face or that we don't have any difficult conversations. It just tells us what's going on. Not only will it tell us what's going on, it will tell us based on history, the broader world, whether we can close those gaps or not and what that looks like. In fact, we then have the GPT to go off and send notifications at both if people are exceeding expectations or are underachieving, so that people can take action earlier. We don't have to wait for the meeting. literally every single day, you're going to have your hot list of things that you need to deal with based on what happened overnight. In fact, we then say to the GPT, would you please schedule a meeting? Identify, based on the objective, think of RACI, who's accountable, who's responsible, who needs to be consulted, and schedule a meeting looking at their calendars to find out when everyone can show up. And we can determine whether it has to be an in-person meeting, a virtual meeting, and so on, and go ahead and schedule the meeting. And then in the meeting, it'll track what gets done, what gets agreed to, who the follow-ups are, who's going to get them done, and monitor that task list, no different than just monitoring the OKRs. And of course, this allows it to, if I were to progress this story on, to do the retrospective and the learn forward and replot next quarter's OKRs. So this is a scary process, because what I've just described to you is a scenario where the total thing is AI or GPT enabled. And it's enabled all the way from strategy development, in the top left corner here, all the way through the strategy execution. And it's the OKRs, which are the information structure that gets captured and monitored and modified, that allows this to work. So this entire story is all about how OKRs enable us to develop strategy and execute strategy in the organizations. And our role as OKR experts is going to change significantly once you begin applying these GPT magical steps as we have begun doing at our clients. This is the beginning of a conversation about how we form a community of practice around this, and I look forward to engaging all of us in this conversation as we move this incredible capability forward.